Hey there, it's Laria. Over the last few weeks, Blizzard has been giving away a lot of Shadowlands beta keys to streamers and content creators. And this means that more and more players are getting into Shadowlands for the first time. This video goes into a few things I suggest doing if you make level 60 characters on the Torghast realm. We'll go over selecting a covenant, acquiring 190 item level gear, getting your enchants and consumables, crafting legendaries, and unlocking your Soulbinds and Conduits at your covenant. The first thing I suggest doing is picking up your covenant quest. When you make a level 60 character, you start out in this room here, and the quest should be right in front of you. It asks you to go around the room and talk to each of the 4 covenant representatives. When you talk to each covenant, it'll show you the 2 abilities that you get and a little bit of information about each covenant. The next suggestion I have is to acquire 190 item level gear. When you first make your level 60 character on Torghast, you have blue gear that is item level 138. To start this, you'll need to run outside of this room and go over to this NPC over here. When you talk to the NPC, select the last option on the bottom. This will give you 300,000 honor points. We'll use these honor points in just a moment, but before that, I want to show you the NPC on the right. If you click on this NPC, you'll see that it sells 10 pages worth of consumables and enchants for your gear. It sells all kinds of different food, potions, flasks, and enchants for a lot of pieces of gear. Now that we've seen where to get our honor points, and we know where our enchants and consumables are, I want you to go back into the room where you picked up your Covenant quest. Now we're going to acquire our 190 item level gear. If you go through the Covenant room, eventually you'll find PvP vendors. The NPC on the left here is the one that sells gear. You have a couple of different options when it comes to rings and cloaks. With 300,000 honor points, I suggest purchasing all the gear. Now that we have our gear, it's time to upgrade each piece. This NPC on the right here allows you to upgrade each piece 5 times. Each upgrade requires honor points, but you should have plenty left over after buying your gear. You'll notice that each piece of gear turns epic once you're finished upgrading it. These upgrades to your gear should boost your damage and healing. These boosts can be pretty nice depending on what content you want to test on beta. The next suggestion I have for you is to craft all of your legendaries for your class. I'll show you exactly where you need to go to find the NPC that sells the legendary items, and then I'll show you how to get to the rune carver to craft the legendaries. The NPC on the right here is the one that sells the items that you need to craft your legendaries. He sells a lot of different kinds of common gear. You'll want to buy the first 2 items that show up, the Bag of Ash and the Legendary Powers. I also suggest buying each piece of gear that he sells. Depending on how many legendaries you want to craft, you should also buy at least 4 of each type of missive. There should be missives for Mastery, Crit, Haste, and Versatility. Now that you have all the items you need to craft your legendaries, it's time to craft them. Click on the NPC on the left, and he'll transport you to the rune carver. Before you're able to craft your legendaries, you need to make sure that you clicked on the Bag of Ash that you bought. You also need to make sure that you use the Legendary Powers item. You'll use a certain piece of gear depending on which legendary you want to craft. The piece of gear you choose will go in the middle of this rune carving circle. Once the piece of gear is in the middle, you can click on the green plus sign on the left and choose which legendary power you want to use. you'll see that I have 4 different legendary options to choose from. I want a specific Rester Druid legendary, so I'm going to select the second one that shows up. Now to fill in the circles on the right side. These are where your missives will go. You get to choose which secondary stats you want on your legendary piece. This is why it's good to have multiple items of each missive. You can also see how much secondary stats you'll get according to whichever piece you chose to craft a legendary. Some items might give you more secondary stats, and some items might give you less. Once you're done crafting your legendaries, there's a portal that will bring you back to Oribos. If you haven't already done so, you'll want to go back and make sure you picked up your Covenant quest. This initial quest is the one that starts your Covenant campaign. The next thing you want to do is leave this Covenant area and go over to one of these teleport pads. This will bring you to the Ring of Transference. The Ring of Transference should have 1 flight point and 4 different gates that bring you to each zone. You'll want to either go to the gate that brings you to your Covenant, or you can use the flight point. The Covenant I chose is Necrolords, so I'm selecting the gate that brings me to Maldraxxus. Once you get to your Covenant, you'll have to do a few initial quests to get your Covenant abilities. Each Covenant has different quests, so I won't go over the process right now. Just know that when you finish getting your Covenant abilities, it'll be time to unlock your Soulbinds and Conduits. The next quest should bring you over to the NPC to unlock your Soulbinds. The quest to unlock your Soulbinds is actually really quick. Again, each Covenant will look a little bit different, but you'll still get this cinematic when you unlock your Soulbinds. If you click on the Forge of Bonds that you just unlocked, you'll notice that your first Soulbind is unlocked. Depending on which conduits you use, you'll choose which route you'll take in this little Soulbind map. Now it's time to get your conduits. If you go over to the left and interact with this NPC, you'll find that you can purchase all the conduits for your class. I suggest buying them all so that you have a whole collection of conduits to choose from. You can learn all the conduits that you just bought by going back to the Forge of Bonds. If you right-click on each conduit that you just bought, you'll see that they all get added to a collection. When you go back to the Forge of Bonds, you'll notice that you have 3 types of conduits: Potency, Endurance, and Finesse. The available spots in your Forge of Bonds only allows you to choose specific conduits, so you can't choose them all from the Finesse category or all of them from Endurance. If you hover over the empty spaces, it will tell you which conduit can be used in that spot. When I first started playing beta over the summer, I was super excited to test out all the different features and explore new zones. But then I realized I didn't know how to craft my legendaries or where to even get the materials I needed to craft them. I also didn't know you could buy enchants and consumables. Actually, a friend of mine was the one who told me to acquire honor points and then use them to buy and upgrade PvP gear to get 190 item level gear. I hope this video helps you out as you start to explore Shadowlands beta. Whether or not you have beta, let me know in the comments what you're most looking forward to in Shadowlands.